Hello and welcome. Andy from Twisted Narrative here, and we are once again going to dive into the world of Candela Obscura. With me tonight, I've got my very familiar faces, hopefully now to you all, but I'm going to let them just do a quick introduction of themselves before we learn about their characters. So I always start off at top left. Liz, please tell us about you. Tell us about what you've been doing.
Hi, I'm Liz. When I'm not role playing, either at round the table with my own family playing D&D 5e, or sometimes online here with Andy and these good people, I enjoy crafting just about anything, and I have a house full of junk that I will find a use for at some point and turn into something glorious. I hope. I look very much looking forward to tonight's game and seeing where the plot will take us.
Fantastic. And then we move directly across around to you, Jocelyn.
Hello, my name is Jocelyn. I was so excited to hear about Candela Obscura being announced that I leapt on watching it, getting all the stuff the minute that I could, 8 hours later because we're in the UK, and was so excited to play in these first. I don't think I've missed one, Andy.
Not at all. No, you've played in all of them. And we've played quite a few at the moment. We've been sort of tweaking kind of because there is only the quick start rules, and I'm sure there's going to be much, much more, not just setting lore, but other sort of things within the system. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but really enjoying it. I'm a great fan of all the rule sets it's been inspired by. So this is just a natural evolution for me. Anyway, I'm top of the world as it is. So I'm very much looking forward to tonight's game.
And it's really fun to be in a different setting, different story, different everything. A little bit of Andy, a little bit of Critical Role. I'm pretty much in heaven.
It's good to hear. I will move down to you, Matt.
Hello, I'm Matt, a friend of collaborator with Andy, having written a number of things together, and very excited to be playing Candela Obscura for the first time. Um, have looked into it a bit, but I've also tried not to look into it too much so that tonight becomes a nice surprise, and I don't want to be too influenced by what other people are doing with it. So yeah, really excited to see what happens next.
Excellent.
Slightly terrified.
And if it goes well, myself and Matt might well sort of publish a few sort of assignments that are compatible. Obviously, we don't want to breach any kind of trademark or copyrights with Candela Obscura, but also with other games inspired by it, like Blades in the Dark. And tonight's game, tonight's assignment is very compatible with a game of Blades in the Dark as well. Lastly, but not leastly, Natascha, whose name I have spelt right, and I'm very pleased about that.
Hello, my name is Nat, not to be confused with Matt.
Oh, you put it in my head now. I'm gonna.
Well, that's what all my friends in Nottingham call me, Nat, because Natascha is too difficult or too long or whatever.
Yeah.
This is my second time playing Candela Obscura. Contrary to the most people around this table, I am not a huge fan of Critical Role. I do watch them, but mostly just to time on how long it takes for Matt Mercer to say the word ajar in a game. And with Candela Obscura, it took him all of 6 minutes and 36 seconds. And that was including the trailer and the setting explanation. So I'm having fun watching it, but probably in a different manner than most other people do.
I'm an enormous fan of Mr. Mercer, and in his defence, an individual that spends 4 hours running a game, sometimes twice weekly, there are only so many words that us GMs can use, and we have our favourites. Leave us alone.
Yeah, I know. I do like them a lot. It's just that I can't bring up the focus to watch 4 hours in a row, and usually
it's tough, and I can guarantee that people watching this now are just about to turn off. So that's the nature of it. But if you do stay with us, hopefully you're for an interesting ride. And I love you, Matt. not well. I mean, I love you as well, but I mean, I'm talking about Mr. Mercer. I love everybody. You know, that's the right thing to say, isn't it? Okay, before I get myself in any more trouble, or rather, I'm just about to get myself into more trouble, but I'm about to give the introduction to stop me getting myself into any more trouble. Content warning. This is a horror-based game which contains mature themes, including but not limited to body horror, graphic violence, blood, death, power imbalances, sexual themes, social injustice. It might not include all of those. The players lead it where it is, but this is for a mature audience. So please, cast, I know your lines and veils already, but viewers, watch at your own discretion. Remember, if you need to take a break, players or viewers, please do. Yeah, we want the game to be fun. We want it to be immersive, but we don't want anybody to be harmed by it or upset by it, and we take that seriously. So there is that content warning. Now that I've said that, it'll probably be the funniest game ever with no horror in it whatsoever. But that is the way that games go. Okay, so let us play Candela Obscura. A few days, maybe a week, has passed since your last assignment, and it is almost Christmas, or what passes for Christmas in the Fairlands. The snow gently sort of drifts down upon New Fair. It's gentle. As we know, the Fairlands managed to avoid most of the shiver, as it was called, this terrible blight of cold that affected many other countries. But it is a time for celebration. It is a time, the war is over, 3 years past, to perhaps look to the future. And we focus on a particular district of a New Fair, the Eves to be precise, exclusive upscale community. Many of our circle of investigators don't reside here, but once again they have been summoned to now a very familiar property, that of Solomon Sable. You shake the snow off, arriving one at a time, and find yourself sitting in the well-appointed and comfortable sitting room. When the final one arrives, you can see that Solomon Sable is agitated. He's pacing. Solomon never paces. He is always in control, always a smile on his face. But there is something that deeply troubles him at this moment. He dramatically turns his back to you at the moment, turns round to face you all, and he glances down. He looks at you first, Eva. What does he see? Eva,
Me on the hop.
describe your character.
Eva is standing against the wall, not flat against it, but is not taking up central space. And that pretty much applies to her entire appearance. She wears usually a maroon dress, which has just enough sort of embellishments to be to pass as something nice from like a couple seasons back if she's in the nicer parts of town. Nice white shirt so that she's definitely presentable. But if she has to go into the grottier parts of town for whatever reasons that she has, and she has plenty of reasons, she can easily make something unkempt. There's poppers and pins everywhere that she can use to change her appearance just ever so subtly to blend in with the crowd. Her hair is always done in a twist, plain brown hair, fairly plain features, regular size, regular shape, very, very unremarkable. And again, she can either make her hair very, very fancy quickly or just let it all down and make herself look like a street urchin.
Perfect. And he kind of nods. His eyes linger on you perhaps a little too long. In terms of, he definitely knows that you're going to be very important to him in the next coming few days. You can kind of read that, and his body language relaxes a little bit knowing that you are now present. Casts his eye across to Mary.
Mary is probably with one hip slung on a side table, leaning against it, one foot, wiggling a bit in the rhythm that Solomon is pacing. She wears durable leather clothing with fringes, has a wide brimmed floppy hat, and wavy dark hair. You can't really tell if it's like black or brown. It's close to black, but sometimes it lights up brown. And slung on her back is a scabbard, and out of the top of the scabbard is a wooden stock. At least you think it's a wooden stock of a rifle. It might not be.
Okay, we will find out, no doubt. And again, almost as if the pause with Eva is magnified again, and he takes a deep breath, and he's very happy that you are here as well, Mary. He looks across to you, Synphonie. What does he see with you?
Synphonie is a young woman. She's somewhere in her early 20s. She's about 5'2", 5'4" at the most. She's very petite, very slightly built. She's quite stylishly dressed. Looks like she could come from a fairly wealthy family. She's got strings of pearls around her neck. She's just cast off a heavy fur coat, which is probably draped over the back of one of the chairs like a sleeping animal. She looks much smaller as well, having taken off this big fluffy coat. But even indoors, she's got a hat on with a big hat pin sticking through it with probably another pearl or a jewel or something on the top. At present, she's perched on a dining chair type thing, going through a little pouch of odds and ends, including, there's all sorts of odd stuff in there. There's a bird's skull, again, there's probably some shiny pebbles, a little glass vial, all sorts of odds and ends. She occasionally, her eyes flick watching Solomon pacing along the room, like she's a bit unsettled by his seeming sort of agitation as well.
Again, he pauses, and he seems satisfied that you are here. Finally, his eyes rest upon you, Elbrick, and his expression changes somewhat. But please describe you.
So Alric is looks to be in his late 20s, has a quite tidy sort of goatee beard and mustache, and is in brown pinstripe trousers and a brown pinstripe waistcoat over a white shirt with no cravat or tie, and then a sort of frock coat style overcoat in deep blue, which is sitting over the top, and he's standing, sort of holding himself quite closely together. He looks like he's standing in a room of a house he doesn't know, that there are other people in that he doesn't know, and he's not entirely sure why he's there. His get-up it's quite well presented, but it also looks like it's the worse for wear. The frock coat's kind of, some of the seams are a bit scruffed. There's the beginnings of wear and tear, and it looks like this is probably some of his best clothing, and it's probably some of his only clothing. And then he's got an ink stain on one side of his nose, and observant people would notice that the tips of his fingers some of them seem to be slightly stained as well.
And it's funny you should mention you're not quite sure why you are there. The similar thought crosses through Solomon Sable's mind as well. You, what is your name, sir?
Hello, Albert Greenheart is yes, Albert Greenheart is my name.
I didn't ask for you. Did they? Have you been sent instead? Do you have papers?
I was given a card and told to come to this address. That there would be answers.
Well, yes, okay. Um, well, I guess it is too late now for changes. Too late for changes. It seems with that, uh, 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 I have scared off Elbrick as your video seems to have gone down.
Apologies, I
That's
have
okay.
now returned, I hope.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's devilishly handsome, but he has a sharp look and he kind of looks straight through you at that point, and it is understandable why you would perhaps kind of react in such a way. But he seems like his hand or arm is pushed behind his back. Um, I guess we are given the tools that we are given. Is that not right, ladies? And we have to use them the way that we can and do the very best.
I guess so, zegt Mary.
I'm sure that you're quite capable. You don't mind if I call you Al, do you?
No, by all means.
Your friends don't call you Al, do you?
As a rule, no.
Oh, that's good then. Okay, so this is awkward, difficult, troubling, all of those things and many, many more things all put together. Your previous assignment was immaculate. You did incredibly well. The samples of the poison are being analysed as we speak. It is taking time. Um, of course, we really truly need to find out who is behind this, and that is where things get somewhat more complicated. It seems any kind of lead has dried up, vanished, so much so that I'm afraid conspiracy. There are people, excuse me, people or organisations of influence and wealth behind this, far beyond even the reach of our small organisation. So I have taken it upon myself to act rather unorthodoxly. This I hoped would not be answered, but unfortunately it has, and it has put myself into a degree of an awkward predicament, which I am hoping that you can help me with, for the one reason to find more information about who is behind this terrible threat to this fine city. He pauses for a moment and takes a sip of wine. As you can perhaps tell, I am somewhat discombobulated. I had to reach out to a nefarious source. I have certain contacts, and they put me into contact with them. They replied with this, and he kind of reaches into his pocket and pulls out quite a large white card, beautiful, the highest quality of paper. Printed on it is a message as he hands it around to you, and it simply says, "Congratulations, you have been specially selected for a unique opportunity. We have urgent need to use your circle. We very much look forward to meeting them at 25 minutes past 3 on the 24th of December 1907. The Clockwork Diner, 666A, Serendipity Street, The Varnish, New Fair. Usual work attire expected." And then it is signed A.B.C. That date is about 24 hours away. You all are instantly aware of ABC. Perhaps you thought it was a myth, a legend, something to scare children or, well, in reality, to scare adults. ABC stands for the Alphabet Club. Sounds friendly enough, but when you truly know who is behind it, not so much. It is a criminal, no, the criminal syndicate throughout the whole of New Fair and beyond. A shadowy organisation that outsources most of its work to those who they believe are best placed to guarantee the best outcome. They are very well known for being overly generous for work completed and terrifyingly extreme in nature to those that fail them. In fact, their motto is "failure is not an option." He pauses for a moment and says, "I am sorry, I did not wish to bring this down upon your heads, but it seems matters have taken on their own momentum." He pauses, giving you chance to perhaps converse, ask questions and the like.
I must say, I have had dealings with some people who have had dealings with this organization. Will we be meeting with one of their at arm's length people, or will we be actually meeting with them?
He shrugs. "I think this is a matter of most importance to them. So therefore you'll probably be meeting with a member of ABC."
Goodness. I mean, I don't know how much, Albrecht, you may or may not know of me. The name is Eva Cartwright. Pleased to make your
Very
acquaintance.
pleased to meet you. Yes. No, I am. One might suppose a fish out of water is probably that's certainly how it feels.
Well, I did not ask for you to come here.
Okay. Well,
But you are
I'm
here now, and there is little we can do about it.
Well, Solomon, it does seem that he wields his ink quite well, if perhaps not his pen.
I'm sorry. I am sure that in fairness, my bad manners is due to my concern about your well-being.
well. I thank you for your concern.
Perhaps you
I'm
should leave information about your next of kin.
right. Okay.
Solomon, don't scare the guy. Last time it went fine, this will end fine too.
Well, I am pleased you're here, Mary. Sorry, Albrecht. Al.
And you have the three of us with you. There's nothing to be worried about, I'm sure.
It's been an odd week of following strange threads, and this may be the strangest so far. But in for a penny, in for a pound, I suppose. Although
Or flesh, most likely.
You've got some ink on your nose.
Oh, Oh no, that's making it worse. Oh no. Uh, what
Eva
what?
Eva takes a handkerchief, and there's going to be some water or something somewhere, I'm sure.
If you hand it to Mary, she will hand it over to Al, but not without spitting on it first.
I hand it to Mary.
She spits on it and then hands it off. So, yeah, you can rub the stuff off your nose now.
Um, lovely. Thank you. And you see Al very, very carefully folds it so that the bit with the spit on is inside everything else, and makes a show of very delicately kind of dabbing at nose. It's fine. I was working late, and some interesting chemicals did some weird things, and I had to record it quite quickly. That was all. But thank you, and kind of awkwardly hands Ava back the handkerchief.
Oh, thank you. So you're a chemist then, or
It's in training, sort of. That's where my education is. I work for one of the shops in Seidel. So my father's friends have been very kind, and that's that. Yes, so that's my. But I've been taking something of a back, sitting back and just doing bits and pieces when I can. I have other things I'm doing at the moment that have taken a lot of my time, which is, I think, why I'm following strange threads that have brought me to strange places, but very nice people. It certainly seems.
I certainly don't want to tell you how to present yourself or to regulate your feelings, but I can assure you that all of us have had very strange encounters of our own. So please feel assured that you are amongst friends.
Well, thank you. That's nice to know.
And we probably share more than any of us would wish to share.
Okay.
Mary gets up from her side table where she's been leaning and walks across to you and shakes your hand and says, "Hi, I'm Mary. I'm usually hired to bring people safely from A to B, and apparently since last week I also sometimes dump people in the sea."
Right.
Safe hands.
Good. Good. Noted. Pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Don't worry, they were bad people. They had shotguns and were trying to kill us. So
Then I applaud the work. Lovely. Okay. Good.
and she goes back and sits on her side table again.
Okay. There's the expression is getting more and more kind of slightly glazed and unnerved with every encounter, but kind of also reassured at the same time. It's a weird mix.
So, those of you who are aware of, this is obviously Solomon speaking, the reputation of ABC, they've specifically asked for not me, but you, my circle. This means they already know who you are, which means, unfortunately, I'm asking you to go and do this. But if you don't, there will be repercussions from them. I did not anticipate them answering in this way, but if we try for one moment to look upon the brighter side of this, if anybody can get us answers of who this organisation is that is producing this poison, this thing to inflame the vices amongst the entire population of New Fair, then it will be the ABC. They know everything, so it seems. So, if you can perhaps do this job, I am confident that you will be successful. I have every faith in. He pauses, looks at you, Al, in all of you. And I totally understand if you don't want to do this, but it might mean we get no answers and we perhaps will have to relocate to, well, a different country, even though I do not think that that is perhaps even far enough from ABC.
There is no reason to stop now.
They went
Apologies.
after the poor. They went after the poor directly with this weird burger sauce stuff of theirs. We owe it to the poor to find out how this all comes together and who's behind it.
I am
Indeed.
truly agreed, and my sincere thanks for taking this so well. There is little for you to do until the meeting. There is, well, little information you should be able to find upon ABC, and what you do is only what they wish to let you know in the first place. I would suggest you rest up, enjoy the next 24 hours, for you never know, they might be your last.
Do you suppose it meant by suitable work attire? Working at what? Oh, I wouldn't have a clue.
It's a good
Sorry.
question.
What did you say, Synphonie? I kind of missed that a bit.
Suggested that we should wear suitable work attire. Suitable work attire for what profession?
It is code for if you are sensitive to the weird, make sure you bring all of your accoutrement. If you look after the well-being of people and ensure that if trouble starts, you can put a very rapid stop to it. He looks particularly at you, Mary. Then bring your work attire. If you are some kind of bookworm, I suppose bring some ink. But it is code for bringing the tools of your trade.
Never leave home without them.
That's reassuring. For a moment I thought I might need to purchase some overalls or workman's outfit. How uncivilized.
I am sure that is not the case. So, the best I can offer you is my wine cellar and my larder. Make yourself comfortable here. Enjoy your evening. Please do not be late for this meeting. As always, Greaves, he points to his man who sort of steps out from the shadows, tall, gaunt. Yes, treat them well, very well. Last supper, that kind of thing. He smiles, nods, and leaves the room. You
Hey,
can
Greaves, spare ribs, a couple of burgers, and some chicken wings, please.
A platter of meat, of course.
Thanks. I haven't had any food yet today, so I'm
The
hungry.
larder is well stocked. Anybody else have any requests? Or perhaps I shall put an array down while you have chance to discuss whatever you wish to discuss.
That sounds lovely.
I'll set
And
the
please,
main table.
and please tell me that Solomon stocks beer as well as wine.
Of course, he has a rather cheeky cognac, if you are interested. It is his favourite, but he did say last supper, so I'm sure he won't mind.
Ooh, I would take him up on a cognac after dinner.
With
I'll
that,
take a couple beer.
he sort of bows and sort of moves out. He goes about his duties, ensuring that you have the finest food and drink. You have a moment of time, should you wish to discuss this, discuss other things. If there's nothing apparently that you wish to do, you are served food and drink, given comfortable beds, unless you wish to retire to your own accommodations, which you are more than welcome to. You are certainly not under any kind of house arrest here. Do you engage in the hospitality of Solomon Sable?
Oh yes,
Yes.
these beds are way more comfortable than my own.
Clean sheets, warm fires. Yes. So the following day comes, you breakfast, you prepare yourselves, you gather your gear, and then, if you are going to stay true to your word to Solomon, have to make your way to the Clockwork Diner. Yep.
As Synphonie and Mary are gathering together their rather obvious gear, and Ava doesn't have anything really to bring with her. She's going to look at Albrecht and say, I hesitate to speak for others, but just to let you know that we have in our party, and you might be able to guess which is which, someone who is very well acquainted with the weird, and someone who is very well capable of the more physical interactions. I myself have a foot in many worlds in New Fair. I wonder what you bring to the proverbial table.
Uncertainty and paranoia seems to be the first, but our noble host yesterday evening suggested that if one is bookish, one should bring ink. I tend towards the scholarly pursuits, I suppose. I am richly read, if poorly housed, I suppose, would be the best description for me. And I've been looking into the strangeness that seems to lie beyond things in the last few weeks.
Wonderful.
So yes, hopefully, understanding and trying to puzzle out things I might be able to help. We'll see. I'll certainly do my best.
I have every reason to believe you will be critical to the success of this party.
Well, fingers crossed, I suppose. Just to clarify, the circle that's you and I, well, possibly me, I suppose now as well. That's what this we did. Oh, right, okay.
Well, I mean, to make sure that you're under no false illusions, we are quite a new circle in the sense that we have worked together once.
Okay.
I mean, each of us individually has done other work, but together,
of course,
only the once. So don't feel that you are impinging upon some sort of year-long intimacy.
I am only slightly late to the party, it seems.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you for tolerating the uncertainty of a stranger in your midst somewhat unwelcomely, it seems. There's been some strange threads that I've been following, and I'm trusting to luck and hoping to find some answers about other things as well.
I think we
we'll
all
see.
are. Yes.
I doubt it will be stranger than finding a crate full of bottles of barbecue sauce and burger sauce tainted with some weird bleed magic that was going to make everyone very horny.
Gives me a headache just thinking about it.
Yes, it wasn't that sort of a thing, but there's something not dissimilar, I suppose. Well, who knows what? I suppose we'll find out soon enough. What today will bring.
Yeah, hopefully ABC will have both assignments and answers for us.
Okay.
Synphonie, dear, are you ready?
Oh, nice. think so. I've got. She seems to have more little pouches and a beaded handbag stuffed with, again, all sorts of, to other people, probably meaningless rubbish or trinkets, but clearly some significance to her. You recognise a little crystal bottle, like you might get a fancy perfume in or something, which last time she used to catch a sample of the bleed from one of the locations we were at. I say there's all these little things like the bird skull, which you saw her sort of focusing on, and stones, and all sorts of stuff, candles, weird occult paraphernalia.
And I'll whisper over to Albert. I have no idea what they do. So if you don't either, don't feel alone.
Okay, good. Right. And he kind of picks up. You see, as he's kind of been coming down this morning, he's been carrying with him. It's a very small, sort of like doctor's bag type situation, and just kind of holds that and kind of stands and continues to stand slightly awkwardly, waiting to follow other people's lead, basically.
And Eva has a sort of a largish handbag that there's no way to know what's inside of it.
Nice.
Fantastic. It seems that you have all of your work attire with you. You leave the property of Solomon Sable. It's cold. The snow is still coming down, and there's maybe an inch or two on the ground now. This is the first time in a long time it has actually snowed in New Fair. It's quite a delight. You see that certainly in the eaves anyway, children are playing snowball fighting and building snowmen. You crunch through the snow as carriages move past you, and you head towards the varnish. The varnish at this time of year is indeed a delight. Red and white crystal in shop windows, lights gleaming on the slippery cross streets, throngs of last-minute shoppers, bright posters still cheerfully advertising everyone to shop early. There is a tall old Father Winter, bearded, red-cheeked, scarlet-coated, white-furred, with a sprig of holly in his cap. Children ringing bells, and there are wreaths for sale on the flower stall. Of course, there is also the things that perhaps certain people's eyes move past. The peddler, homeless on the street corner, trying to sell some holly for a few pennies to find a warm and dry place. Amongst all of this celebration, there is still poverty. The Clockwork Diner is a beautiful place, an old clock tower where it gets its name, with all of the clockwork inner workings down a central column, all for you to view, kind of it all moving, precision engineering, the huge pendulums moving tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. A number of floors up the tower, the beautiful varnished wooden floors, the table, the staff immaculately dressed. You arrive, the person at the front sort of nods and says, "Can I help you? Do you have a reservation?"
We do. I believe it's the 1525.
1525. She looks down a list. There is only one table for that. Oh, of course. Please follow me. Takes you up to the top of the tower. The room itself, whilst many tables, is empty, apart from one individual sat at a table with 4 seats. He stands. The individual is strange looking, a male, pinkish, pudgy flesh, small circular glasses, his hair short, revealing 2 large ears, and his nose looks like it has been broken in a number of places and reset many times. Whilst short of stature, he has that look that a wild terrier has. Kind of beautiful, almost adorable, but any moment could rip your face off. He smiles and says, "Splendid, on time. I do like that. I'm Mr. Z. Please take some seats." He sits down.
Mary will take a seat that has her back against the wall.
Unfortunately, this table is in the centre. Plenty of space. No safe place designed for your, well, most discomfort that you could possibly have. But there's no trouble. There's no one here. No one that you can see anyway.
Given the social situation and the fact that Mr. Z has already sat down, Eva will wait just a moment to see if Albert is going to push her chair in.
He does so.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, yes.
Mary won't give you time enough to push her seat in.
Right.
She perches on her chair like she's riding side saddle, you know, sort of on the edge, sort of feet to one side.
And
little
kind
bag
of
on her lap.
Albert, sort of, you can see he gauges and doesn't know how to deal with that, so goes to a different chair, goes to his own chair and sits down.
Perfect. With this semi-musical chairs, you find you now all seated. Mr. Z is already eating. He sort of looks up and smiles, says, "Don't worry, I've ordered the same for you already." You see what he is consuming is this slice of cherry pie, and he scoops a big dollop into his mouth, and some cherry juice just dribbles down his lip, kind of like blood. He says it's just to die for.
Interesting choice of words, Mr. Z.
Simple pleasures. Of course, no need for introductions. I am very aware of you all and your unique skill sets. And thank you for taking the time to come here. Normally, when we engage agents, we require them to take on nom de plumes, code names for secrecy so that they do not know who each other is. For fun, I think we will carry on that tradition, just to amuse me. Of course, it is simple. Just a letter, a simple letter. Do you have anything that you would particularly favour? Of course, I am Z, and X, as we know, is most definitely taken. Or would you prefer me to offer them out?
I should be interested to see what letter you would think would suit me.
He pauses for a moment, bites into his pie again. I think, yes. I think W, suiting your profession.
I think
I'll take the S.
You are welcome to that. So, is it Miss or Ms?
None of your business.
Then just S. You, what would you like to be known as? W? Just W?
I'm quite happy being Miss or
Miss W.
Miss W. That suits me.
It is a delight seeing you again, he says to you, Eva, although you've never met this person before.
No flicker of surprise crosses her face.
Yes. Do you have a particular favourite letter?
I must confess to the same curiosity as my friend Synphonie. Or should I say, Miss W?
Very good. You are learning. Well, how about A? The beginning of the alphabet. And, well, quite close to the name that you choose to use for yourself as well. Maybe that's a little too close to home.
I must admit, I was weighing up the choices myself, which is why I was curious to see what you were going to say.
But time's running short. I'm not entirely sure who you are, so you'll be P. So, your light keeper, is that what they call them these days? He reached out. I'm guessing he perhaps wasn't expecting a reply, but it seems needs must, and well, fortune would have it that we have in need of your services. A delicate situation that, to be perfectly honest, we are not entirely sure what amount of leverage we need to put upon it, whether your skills or your skills or your skills or even your skills. So, a circle, a collection of uh, different talents might be just the job. There is a painting, a rather unique painting that we require. We require it by the end of tomorrow night. How you gain this painting is none of our concern. What is our concern is you gain it without drawing any attentions to yourselves, or rather to ABC.
Unique and interesting to you about this painting? Is it just the artist or the style or something else?
A combination of a number of things. It is called the water sprite. Obviously worth, well, no amount of money. Otherwise we wouldn't be bothering ourselves with such a trifle. The artist, though, Dragos Moscovici, he painted it a year before his death. We believe it was believed to be one of his last works and smuggled out of the otherwhere at great cost. The otherwhere being the foreign country across the sea that invaded the fair lands sort of 3 years ago when the war came to an end. We are aware that this painting is in the possession of one Lazarus Saxon. He lives relatively close to New Fair, on the outskirts, 10 or so miles away. It is important that we retrieve this painting no later than, well, we will say the hour that it is now, giving you a small amount of time to act. It is unlikely Lazarus Saxon is going to sell this painting, so making him an offer of simple money is not on the books. If it was that easy, believe me, we have so much money we could have done that without disturbing you. So, through guile, through theft, through persuasion, through any other means that you deem necessary that doesn't put ABC in any danger of discovery, that is your task.
And which town does he live in?
No, he lives about 10 miles away from this fair city, out towards Tottergrass. He has a residence in the estate, an old manse, Gothic in design, quite tasteless, if you don't mind me saying. I prefer the modern designs to all of those steeples and gargoyles and the like.
Is this
Understandable.
painting painted on wood or on canvas? Is it framed? Do you need the picture frame as well as the picture itself?
So many questions, some of which are appropriate. We believe the painting to be on canvas, whether it is framed or not now. It is difficult to say, but this Lazarus Saxon is known as an artist, a poet, and a collector, so one would assume that it is framed and in pride of place. In terms of frame, no, as long as the painting is undamaged, you can return it to us as is.
And do you have an idea of the approximate size?
I wished I did. One would assume that it would be relatively easy to carry, but it is perhaps worth your time to ensure you have adequate transport in case it isn't.
I can imagine something hanging in pride of place in a Gothic mansion might be a bit difficult to slip out with.
It might be all of like 6 by 2 meters big, or
It
as
is.
tiny as 20 by 10 centimeters. I mean,
There is not much on record about this painting, unfortunately. Perhaps if you wish to delve deep into it, you have most of the rest of the day to do any research. We've done some initial research. He seems to, well, live more or less by himself. He has a housekeeper by the name of Virginia McFadden, and she tends to all his needs, does his shopping, his cooking, his cleaning, and the like. According to the information we have, she is quite young though, only about 21.
Eva will cock an eye at Mr. Z.
He remains implacable. You might be able to find more about his background and her background if you have those resources available to you. We have just been offered this contract, and therefore we haven't managed to do as much research as we would have liked. It is time sensitive, and we are leaning on you, the experts.
Well, does anyone else have any other questions?
yeah. Does this guy have any relation to Armand Boyd?
Interesting question. Not as far as I'm aware. But I am aware that this name keeps cropping up, and I get the suspicion that your payment will be in information about this chef Armand Boyd and anything we know about him and his relationships with other societies.
That's good to know.
Synphonie
He does
shuffles.
crop up like a bad penny all the time, except for when you want to know something about him.
But you do this for us, you will be well rewarded. Remember, failure, though, is not an option.
What was that, Synphonie, my dear?
Synphonie shuffles around in a chair and suddenly straightens up to the table. I'm interested to know why you need people of such diverse a skill set as the four of us. If it's simply a matter of a little breaking and entry, surely that would be more suited to common house thieves. What makes you think that we are needed?
You are right. We are aware that he would not accept simple coin for payment for the painting. We are also aware of his reputations, and we have not had the luxury of a huge amount of time since the request we have received about this painting has been presented to us. Hence, a eclectic group to cover all aspects of what you might face.
I see. Yes. Well, I'm
Let
looking
me
forward
tell
to
you a
it.
little about of Lazarus Saxon. He pauses and he thinks. He doesn't look at any notes. He says, so the name Saxon, rich family, dating back, they made their money through mining. Lazarus is currently, according to record anyway, 56 years of age. He seems to fancy himself as an artist, poet, born into money in his younger years, very much a debauched playboy. There was a scandal about 31 years ago where a young woman died at one of his parties. It is possible that drugs were involved, but it seems very much there was a large cover-up. We have looked into perhaps blackmail, but the family solicitors have done a very good job at burying that story. Most definitely, though, he is the black sheep of the family, and well, it's one of the reasons why he does not reside in New Fair itself. He has been exiled to the country, about 10 miles away from New Fair. He is, though, educated, well read. The people that meet with him still count him as charming. It is kind of strange. One would almost call him a recluse, but according to our investigations, he occasionally has house guests. They all appear to be socialites with interest in art and poetry. The majority tend to be female. It is about much as we have got. There are, though, a number of receipts we managed to obtain when he originally moved into the manse for renovations. It seems that he purchased a rather large number of, well, interesting and exotic or eclectic refurbishments.
Oh, I would
And
ask
how
you all about them, but perhaps we should just see for ourselves.
Sound like an
how long
interesting.
ago did he? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, he sounds like an interesting character. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing this house of his and its works of art. Things I did appreciate a good illustration.
Well, this is the address, and he gives you the address. I say it's about 10 miles outside of New Fair. He says, please feel free. Whilst our reach is long, we tend to lean into experts, and you are those experts. Maybe you will uncover more than we haven't.
How long ago did he settle on the Tottergrass?
Well, it was straight after the death of that woman. So he kind of seems to sort of think back. And he says he moved out to New Fair, I believe, in about 1876. The incident at his party was in 1875, which is round about 31 years ago. So he's been established there a fair amount of time now.
Well, I suppose all we can do is go and say hello.
Well, if that's how you wish to place it, if you wish to break a window, creep in, find the painting and just remove it from his property, that is also an option. But it is down to you. Just remember, failure is not an option.
Well,
You got a
perhaps we
place
should.
where we can plot, like a private dining room or something?
I will leave you to it. This place
Thanks.
is still empty. It's like the upper floor, the prime position where eaters would look over the beautiful city of New Fair. Sort of on Christmas Eve, basically the most remarkable time for people to come here and sort of watch the snow falling, and it is empty. You get the feeling he's probably booked all of the tables. It would have cost quite a small fortune. He wipes the cherry sauce from his mouth as your pies are delivered. He stands. So the painting here tomorrow. I look forward to it.
Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
I give him a scoop of cherry pie on my spoon in salute.
Enjoy. And he goes out, and the cherry pie is to die for. It is sweet. The sauce is, well, it's gloopy. It's a syrup rather than light and beautiful. But you are left alone.
Maybe we should ask this Lazarus if we can inspect his tapestries or something. That we come from a faraway land and heard about his collection.
Quite possibly.
One possibility. I thought I might see if he could. An idea might be that I could perhaps throw my family name around. The Havishams are quite well known, I think. Maybe if he's so well connected, maybe that might gain us an admittance. If he's so into entertaining.
Yeah, well, if he's been living on a Tottergrass for 30 years, he will know my family name, and that won't be a recommendation. Let's put it that way.
On a more practical note, speaking of how big this may or may not be, and the fact that it's 10 miles out of town and we have very little time to work with.
Carriage hire. Gotcha.
Might I suggest that we have a carriage for ourselves and Mr. Greenheart, I'm not sure if you're aware of my own line of work, but as I say, I have a foot in many different areas of town, and many different interests, shall we say, some high, some low, and I am not completely unused to work of this type. So I have some youngsters that help me out, and I could always, with you and your approval, of course, hire a carriage for them to run us a bit of backup, a couple miles behind, in case anything goes wrong, or in case we need them to make an escape one way and us another.
That sounds like a sensible maneuver. If we have to abscond with something, then having a quandary as to which party is the one to follow is probably a good idea.
Thank you.
Yes.
I will arrange us our own carriage, and I will drive the leads.
I
The
mean,
horses. I mean.
this is what you do, Mary. This is exactly what you do. It's no trouble at all to arrange this.
What I would say is certainly from my part, if we could get in and if he were to host us for a little while, I could slip something. I could create something that could be slipped into his drink and any other drinks that may be appropriate that might send people to sleep, if that would be helpful.
Oh,
I am a chemist, and I've may have been a little too interested in some of the interesting things that you can do with a certain mixture of certain chemicals. But that is something that if that would be helpful, that might be an opportunity to at least give us some time to remove something from the room. And possibly make an exit ourselves if need be. I could
yes.
potentially do worse than sleep, but my inclination would be sleeping is probably the best option.
Although there is the issue then of their having seen our faces.
True. Is there something in?
What is he going to do about having seen our faces?
Potentially report us to the authorities. Although the more I think about it, the more I think ABC would not have gotten contact and asked for our circle, especially with you in it, Miss W, unless there was some connection to the lead.
Do any of you of you two rich people have a painting at home that you wouldn't mind miss?
I'm sure there would be something that we could liberate from my father's study. He has quite a collection.
Oh, a swap, so he might not notice right away.
Yeah, if you don't remove it from the place where it usually hangs, then, I mean, how often do you look at your own, like, room and go, I'm sure there was something different in that picture, but no. It's a picture, it's always hang there, it's always been there. No one looks at pictures, it's just like
It's
an
all about the
object.
collecting. The collecting that matters. Perhaps spend a little time before we go trying to research the artist. We might get some idea of how large a piece we're dealing with or his nature.
I was thinking similar, and if I don't know if copies are a thing, but whether there might be something to do with that. And could we replace it with not the actual painting, but something very, very, or a copy thereof? If we can at least find out how big it is, that would be useful going forward, I think, and going in. And I can prepare something that would be sleep-inducing if that's helpful. And it would probably make sense to do that in advance.
Rather not use it than wish we had it.
Absolutely. And it will always come in handy at some point, I'm sure. Right.
So, finishing off or not finishing off your cherry pies, you are going to research where There is the college, of course, probably a place that you're very associated with, Elbrick.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
college perhaps doesn't do it justice. It's a sprawling estate of libraries, universities, and the like, covering the arts, humanities, and sciences.
I would probably, having been there quite a lot in the last few years with my training, I would then probably take the lead on that and seek to investigate more about the painting, if possible, and the residents, which I definitely wrote. I definitely didn't write it down, but yeah, if there's anything about the house that he's in, particularly as well, that estate, but mainly the painting and the artist, and if there's anything to be aware of.
Okay. Are you all going to go with Elbrick to sort of look into this, or have you got other things that you wish to do, just so we get to establish what people are going to do? So we'll start off with you, Symphony. What is your intentions?
Well, first of all, before we leave, it might be noted that Synphonie hasn't really eaten her pie, though maybe subconsciously she's been stirring around in the syrup on the plate, and she's made a bit of a replica of one of those weird occult symbols we came across in the last investigation, like it's still just rattling around there in her brain.
Very nice.
Probably caused her a bit of trauma last time. But I think no, she would like to go along for the research, liking the Briar Green area. It's where her family home is, so they're quite affluent. So
Perfect. Eva, what is your intentions? You've got scant amount of time, and I would really like to remind you this is the equivalent of Christmas Eve at the moment. There is much going on and no time for people just calling randomly at one's houses. Eva, yes, what are you going to do?
It's so subtle, I doubt anyone would have noticed, but she carried her handbag in her left hand on the way to this appointment. And on her way out, she's just going to carry it in her right hand. And she's simply going to walk along as if she's doing some last minute Christmas window shopping. And the handbag in the right hand is a sign for any of her young acolyte people, not acolytes, but
Urchins.
young helpers or urchins.
Ne'er-do-wells.
Yes. Left hand means you don't know me. Right hand means approach me silently and follow my lead.
Lovely.
So I will be collecting whichever ones of them are out, probably quite a few because it's cold and they might not have anywhere to go. Although if Eva has anything to do with it, she'll try to make sure they will.
Well, almost instantly, opportunity knocks. Hey there. Well, we got a job, huh?
Ah, yes, a new one. I knew I could count on you, Knox.
Right.
So yes.
What do you need?
Well, what I need, a few friends of mine and I are going to be in a carriage, and we're going to be heading out to, and I hand him I tell him the information about where we'll be headed.
That's out of the city. It's dangerous
Yeah, I
out
know.
there. There's like
Oh,
greenery and fresh air.
you're not afraid of these things.
Ah,
You're not afraid of anything.
well, it's not right. There's
Well,
no buildings.
you will be inside the next best thing to a building because you will get to take a carriage ride. And I'm going to get out the money and say, I need you to hire a carriage, round up a few of your friends, and go along the same way, but stop a couple miles back. We are either going to be coming out with something we shouldn't have in the eyes of the law, in which case we might need to hand it off to you, and both of us, split up and go separate ways. Or we might just go past you as if nothing had ever happened, but I need you there as backup. You know I rely on you.
I'm always there for you. I'll spread the word.
Thanks.
Consider it already done.
Thank you.
Before you go off, Nox, I have a question for the others. Are we going right away this evening after the visits to the college? Or are we waiting until the morning? That would leave us very, very little time.
I think we need to
I
go
prefer
tonight.
going tonight.
Yes, at least we have the cover of darkness as well that way. Just hide a great
Yes.
many sins.
Yes.
If we could get there tonight, is there something to be said for our ruse? Our carriage has lost a wheel or something. Can we come in for shelter while it's being fixed? I don't know, but I would agree that yes, going this evening makes sense.
I can arrange a wheel mishap right in front of his mansion.
And then
Although
strategically fixable, but
strategically fixable. Although there is also the option that Miss W provided of throwing her family name around. I mean, I could have somebody whisk over a note right away.
We can do both. I mean, the carriage of Miss W just happened to, spring a wheel right in front of Lazarus' mansion. And then her name gets you guys in while I tend to the horses in the wheel. And then join you later.
Best of both worlds.
Right.
Then in that case, I will go off with Knox and I'll pick you up at the college later.
Excellent.
Okay, we'll be as quick as we can.
Knox is more than happy to go with you, and Mary, and they, because they are most definitely they, kind of know all of the back routes and take you very rapidly to the places you need to go. In the meantime, the rest of you hit the colleges. The artist, first and foremost, who is going to make a roll, and what kind of roll are you going to make? This is probably going to be intuition, quite possibly sort of the focus, one would say, but I'm more than happy to argue for something else if you can rationalise.
No, I was going to suggest focus.
Sounds perfect.
Myself, so I'm happy to go.
I will be happy to lend a point of my drive to our newfound friend. I quite enjoy books and the smell of the papers and things, so I shall research alongside him.
Spending a drive means you add an extra dice to your dice pool. You can spend your own drives as well if you want.
Cool. I've got 2 focus anyway. Plus, I've got I've got a gilded dice because I've got the diamond filled in on focus.
Correct, yeah. So that doesn't add an extra dice to it. Just means one of the dice.
But one of them is a gilded dice. Yeah.
So at the moment with Symphony, you've got 3 dice, one of which is gilded. You can spend some of your drive to increase that if you think it is important.
I'm inclined to hold fire. Basis that I've only got the. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it with 3 and see how that goes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let us see. Let the dice tell a tale.
Right. Fingers crossed. Oh dear.
Well, no, I mean you ignore the ones, which is fine.
Good.
It's the highest. It's a 4. So this
Cool.
is a success, but with a consequence.
Okay.
And I'm gonna. I think I was a little bit easy on you. Well, I wasn't really easy on you all last time. You were just rolling 6s left, right, and centre. So I'm going to play a little bit hardball now with consequences and failures. They're going to have repercussions, and it's you as well, Matt. So I feel like I'm picking on you tonight, and I feel really bad.
No, you don't.
No, okay, I don't. So it's a success first and foremost. So let's give you the good news, or rather some news. The water sprite isn't mentioned at all. You don't draw anything up with that. there's a couple of notations or kind of mentions, but it's kind of strange that it's not mentioned because it kind of should be mentioned. But Dragos Moscovici is a prominent painter. Some of the other paintings: Servant of Dreams, Pollution of Insanity, and Beasts of Blood, all of which kind of evocative, kind of gothic, but done in a strange, evocative style of colours. Designed, there's a number of samples within these texts for you to sort of look at, designed really for you to look at it, to consider the title, and to make of it, of the blending of the colours. It's kind of almost the eye of the beholder telling a story, um, rather than being specific paintings. And they are very evocative in feeling as you kind of look at these. Um,
Is it likely we could have seen any of this artist's works before here in New Fair, or has he not really had much in the way of
I mean,
exhibition?
yes, he is relatively sort of well known if you like art, if you follow art. A lot of people obviously were involved in the war and didn't have time for such things. But for instance, your family perhaps would be aware of him. If you are a student of art, um, you certainly would be aware of him. But the very interesting thing, your success really, is that according to this information, the last few years of his life, Dragos Moscovici was not only blind but um, was incarcerated in a hospital for those with illnesses of the mind. And according to Mr. Z, this was painted during that period. This painting was painted whilst he was both blind and um, receiving medications.
Right.
So
Okay.
either Mr. Z has got it wrong, or this is a very odd painting to be able to be done. In terms of size, that's another question that you were trying to do. Most of these are largest paintings, but nothing that is going to be too unmanageable. You should, one or two of you could easily carry one of these paintings out in its frame. If you decided just to take the canvas, there's a chance you might damage the paint by rolling it up, but it would be very portable then.
Okay.
But there is this curiosity.
Yes. So I would feed all of this back, obviously.
Mhm.
I wish we had more time. Perhaps if we paid a visit to this facility where Mr. Moscovici was
It would have been
getting
difficult. It
treatment,
was
it could be
I
helpful.
believe it was
across the sea.
across the waters in the lands of our erstwhile enemy.
More time.
Um,
Plus.
well, it's going to be an interesting painting. I guess the question is, well, if we had more time, I guess the question would be, could we do something that you would replace it with, and would they notice? But yes. Okay. Well, that's something anyway. Okay.
The complication that you got on your 4, because I haven't
Oh,
forgotten
now
about
we
this,
don't need to deal about that. It's fine. No, it's not a problem.
is a very overzealous and helpful librarian notices that you are studying these and basically says, "Oh, you're not the first sort of student of art to come and look at these. There was a gentleman here, quite a lot, Mr. Saxon. He lives out of town and made special journeys in here, and he was doing very much research like you. But I don't see what. Well, they are curious paintings. Anyway, if I can be of any help, um, please." The complication being that they have recognised you looking at these paintings and has recognised both of your faces.
Does this overly zealous librarian have any information to offer us regarding the nature of Mr. Saxon? Any personality sort of quirks or anything they might have noticed?
Well, it sounds like you're trying to turn a complication into an advantage, which means I'm going to need some kind of smoozing roll, some kind of
Oh,
charm,
alas, I am terrible at
some
that.
kind of turning this. I mean, she's currently not suspicious of you at all, but if any information were to hit the papers or whatever, it might spark a recollection. But if you want to try and get some information out of her about this man's
Ah,
personalities, that would be gossip. So you would have to sort of smooth her, some kind
sway.
of sway.
Yes, I don't actually have any points in sway,
Wow,
but
this is going to be fun.
I think Synphonie would like to be charming, but she's often a little bit too strange or looks at people in the wrong way. So I believe, is it that you roll 2 dice and take the lower one?
Can
Technically,
I?
you would, but yes, I think Albric is going to help you with this.
Yes, I am definitely going to do that. So I will give you at least 1 point of drive. And is that right? I deduct drive from my equivalent of
Cunning.
that group. So
Yeah.
cunning.
Yeah,
Okay,
So-
cool.
you can
Sorry,
only
thank
offer
you.
1 drive to someone else, so that's the most you can do. So that gives you 1 dice, which means you don't have that disadvantage mechanic.
Excellent.
You just
Let's
get to roll
see.
the 1 dice.
Let's
What
see
could
how we
possibly
go.
go wrong?
That's
5.
not too bad. It could be
No,
worse.
it's good, more information, but we're going to double up on the fact that you are now asking about your target, your mark. Professional rogues in the house here. So not only is it just the book, but you are now asking about this person specifically. But it is a success, and you should be rewarded. She says, well, and you see that she flushes somewhat and kind of fans herself a little bit, and it's kind of strange, really. She says he was quite charming, very very polite, but and she looks nervously. Um, he was well. He shared some of his poetry and he brought some of his artwork in to show me, and well, they were uh, well, they were rather sedacious, rather uh, uh, well, there was much flesh and she looks fornication spoken in the poems. It was scandalous, really.
To share it with a young lady who we'd only recently met. Scandalous indeed.
Indeed, I have to say, it wasn't terribly good either.
That's insult to injury, I suppose, isn't it?
But one of the strange things about it was the artwork. There was much flesh on show, but not in the classic sense. We're all aware of the classical paintings, and well, that is, I suppose, palatable, but these were scandalous indeed. Um, but the face upon all of these women in his artwork were similar or the same. It was very strange. I made my excuses. He only ever showed me them once, and I kind of avoided him ever since.
Don't blame you.
Thank you very much for sharing that information. He sounds like quite the
Well,
character.
I'm never a gossip, but I think you being a young woman as well, you should be cautious. Some of these artists and poets are not exactly what they seem.
I shall consider myself forewarned should I ever have the fortune or perhaps miss to meet this Mr. Saxon.
Indeed, I wouldn't mind so much, but he was quite an old gentleman as well.
Those are definitely the worst kind.
Well, I have to say, I don't mean to be impolite, but it is Christmas Eve and all, and
Of course, we are taking up your time, and you've been very helpful, and thank you very much. And yes, and sorry, we I think it's a research project we're working on, and I'm sure sometime in the new year when we're able to follow up, we will be back and continuing, and it eventually may get to a point of being able to go and potentially visit with caution, Mr. Saxon, but it's been really useful to talk to you. So, and thank you very much for your help. It's been
Indeed,
really
have a
helpful.
happy holidays.
but of course, and you too. I'll put the books back for you.
That's very kind. Thank you. Lovely. Right. Well, have a good evening, and yes, good. Okay,
So
we'll make an exit.
you picked up even more information. Okay,
Um,
Eva. Yeah, Eva.
Sorry. Yeah, I was jumping in and you were jumping in on me. So since my action took about 4 seconds, because opportunity knocks is always right on the beat,
Yeah,
and Mary went off with him, could I do something else in this time that
absolutely,
they've been researching?
absolutely.
Fantastic. So I would like to do the little tiny things that she does to sort of gussy herself up. So on the inside of her outer garment, she will have like a brooch and a nice pair of earrings that she can then affix on the outside. So that'll take her, 2 seasons ago nice outfit up a notch, and she'll do her hair up quite nicely and make sure that she's clean and very well presented. And she will go into a gallery, an art gallery that she has been into before and has met
Absolutely.
the owner. And may I?
Sorry, may you?
Just, can I make you make an NPC for the gallery owner
I don't need to
on the
make
fly?
I don't need to make an NPC. The gallery owner that you are aware of is someone that is connected with Candela Obscura. An individual by the name of Xander Ikari, an art dealer aligned with Candela Obscura, an intimate knowledge of underground world of magical artifact trafficking. And I don't need to make it up, for it is in the quick start rules of Candela Obscura.
Excellent.
It shows that reading it and bringing in their world lore with my nonsense is good. So
Brilliant.
he looks at you and sort of nods. In your line of work, not necessarily Candela Obscura work, but certainly the other side, he has leaned into you for information and perhaps moving things that you have obtained. Um, so you have a good working relationship with him, and he smiles. Ah, I've heard that you've got yourself fully invited now to the organisation. Congratulations.
Why, thank you, Mr. Ikari. Word travels fast.
And your circle, are you happy with everyone?
So far, absolutely. Although we do seem to have a new member that our lightkeeper was not aware of, which
Is
is a bit
he
strange.
wearing a red waistcoat?
Brown pinstripes and a rather shabby dark blue frock coat, I believe.
No, well, maybe he'll be okay then. Quite often, to complete a circle, there tends to be someone that comes in. They tend to wear a red waistcoat or something of that kind of colour. They unfortunately don't make it and are rapidly replaced with another.
I love the red reference. Sorry, that's just made my evening.
I think we broke Jocelyn.
Sorry, you seem to have hilarity come across you. Please take a seat. This is a horror game, damn it! You should be terrified.
um, well, we have a rather interesting situation on our hands. We are quite pressed for time, as is not unusual. It would seem to be an incredibly mundane situation. But I just can't bring myself to believe that it's mundane, or why would we be called in? And so I was wondering if you had any information on any odd aspects to the work of recently deceased artist from across the seas. Name,
You do know his name, so
yes.
um,
Dragos Moscovici.
yeah. He kind of squints for a moment and says it is, yeah, a name that I am relatively familiar with. Like many artists, they sometimes can perhaps peer beyond the veil and they present many of their works from visions that they've had. I believe this artist was gifted or cursed. Sometimes it is difficult to tell the difference between the two. Um, yes, it is someone I am familiar with. You will have to perhaps be a little more specific. I have one of his works of art here, if you wish
Oh, do
to
you?
have a look.
Yes, please.
It takes you across, and it is covered with sort of dust cloth. But you get the idea it's not to keep dust off it, it's to stop people looking at it. Please brace yourself. Many of the items that we have here can affect the mind. If
Understood.
if you are sure,
Yes.
and with that he removes the cloth, and it is colour. There is an awful lot of red, kind of crimson, um, kind of looks like a arterial sort of splatter more than anything else. Something that you might be familiar with seeing in some of the back alleys. We received this one at quite a good price. I've had it checked and there is no obvious bleed as such, but it seems to still affect some people's minds. We think that it perhaps creates a craving within those weak of will to go out and perhaps commit some kind of slaughter.
Specifically slaughtered.
Well, bloodletting and the like. I'm
Mm.
using poetic language. Not everybody. I'm showing it you. You haven't drew your blade yet and tried to open one of my arteries.
No, never for
Um,
you.
But who knows? This artist, most specially, was talented in such ways. He kind of puts the cover back down.
Do you happen to know if his gifts, shall we say, were directed only towards slaughter, or did he have a wider repertoire?
Definitely a wider repertoire. I don't think it was his intentions. I don't think he was attempting to create this effect. I think it was just almost as if something from the other side, from beyond the veil, was perhaps trying to channel through him.
And I assume it took its toll on him.
I
Then
believe so. I think he went blind and mad, crazed towards the end of his life.
sounds like that would be the case. Are you aware of any other of his works in the New Fair region?
Right. So this is an interesting one, because I'm going to ask you to make a skill roll on his behalf. So
Okay.
rather than the NPCs taking the challenge and rolling, what I like to do is throw it back to the players. So this is the equivalent of not just his knowledge, but what he can provide for you with what you are asking. So looking at your abilities to do here, I'm happy for persuade roll, so a sway, or perhaps even I think sway is good for you. So no gilded dice, but you can spend as much cunning as you want to try and get answers out to him. But if you fail, it'll be you that suffers the consequences.
Okay. Well, then
So
I will.
I'll just say this is represented in not the knowledge he knows, but whether he's going to tell you the knowledge he knows.
Right. Okay. And I can use 2 drive?
You can use as much drive as you've got for your own dice. You can only just give one to another player.
Great. Just checking. Thanks.
That's okay.
So I will spend 2 of my drive for a total of 3d6.
Yep, that is fine. Okay, 6. Perfect success. Well done. This is what we want. So, unfortunately, you don't get much more than perhaps you already know. But he at least very much confirms what you do know. He tells you, well, there is a rarity, a rumour, as much as I know. It certainly did not pass through my hands, of a painting called The Water Sprite. Unique, supposedly painted a year before he died. This is, well, an impossibility, as he was both blind and deranged at this point. But impossibilities is what we deal with, is it not? So maybe the rumours are true. Maybe this painting does exist. But mark my words, if this painting does exist, from what I know, what I have seen, there is something most foul about it. I wouldn't be surprised if bleed flows from it as much as it would from a nicked artery.
Yes. Are you sure that you haven't been touched by glancing at this painting?
I keep mentioning it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Quite vivid language. No, it doesn't bother me in the least. You've been most helpful, as always. Thank you
It is
so
my
much.
pleasure. It is my pleasure. And if you find anything off the, as you say, the back of the cart, I am more than happy to keep it between ourselves rather than Candela, and the money would always be good.
Yes. I would say, distinction between work and pleasure, but at this point it's becoming a distinction between work and work.
Indeed, it just means that we are united in both.
Wonderful. I'll see you again soon.
He shows you out and says, uh, uh, Merry Christmas, if Christmas
Merry
does
Christmas to
exist
you.
in this setting, Winterfest or whatever the setting law will call their Christmas celebrations.
Yes.
We are ahead of
So
the
Eva
curve.
will come out carefully with her handbag on her left side and just very, very subtly as she goes, replace her jewelry and become sort of the fading into the background Eva.
And you caught him just before he was closing. It is that time. He turns it around. The street lights are beginning to flare up, and it's that beautiful sort of scene of snow flakes just coming across the gas lanterns, and it's uh, picturesque, a winter scene. He turns the sign to closed, and you see him lower the lights as he's going off to do whatever celebrations he needs to do. So, last but not least, we turn to Mary before we have a quick break. Mary, what did you get up to with the young urchin known as Only Opportunity Knocks?
Basically, we've been to a livery stables that I know really well, where I've been arranging transport for the expeditions that I worked for, but also when I was just doing, transport job within the city for richer people. And I've managed to hire for 2 days a lovely dove gray body carriage with dark blue upper coachwork, and it's windowed all around. And there's two gray matching horses pulling the carriage, and it will seat 6.
Perfect. And this is what you do day in, day out. It is no challenge to you, so I'm not going to impose any kind of dice roll for you. It is literally your job.
Yeah, there's also dove gray curtains on the inside if you want privacy, but it's also a carriage with lots of windows and lamps inside. So those that want to be seen and show off can be seen and show themselves off.
Perfect. Opportunity also gets a carriage for them, and the others. You notice that there is a gaggle now, and they're all piling up on the back of the cart, sort of covered. It's got a tarpaulin over it. They've all got the best coats that they've got. Fingerless gloves, throwing snowballs at each other. It's quite chaotic. They're enjoying being out in the snow. So, with your transportation gathered, with a little bit of research done that you can, where do you rendezvous to set out 10 miles from New Fair?
The library was where we supposed to pick each other back up.
Okay.
And because it's snowing and it's getting evening, it will be colder. Mary also has acquired a traveling blanket like they use out in the wild, with a hole in the middle that she can pull over herself like a poncho. Because she'd be the one driving out in the snow while the rest is sitting cozy inside and warm.
Perfect. So the rest of you see the carriage arrive. You obviously board and you begin to head out. Again, Mary knows the way, knows this very small hamlet where this manse stands, and you begin to make your journey out. I've totally sort of mistimed this. So, we can have a break now, or we can continue for a little while longer, maybe another 20 minutes or so, and then call an end to it and continue next session? What would you prefer to do? I'm just conscious of the time.
At this point, I think I'd be happiest with just continuing and finishing a little bit ahead.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. It feels like we've come so far along that, and we'll get to a natural pause point.
Yeah,
So it makes sense. Yeah.
that's fine. I did know that I kind of mentioned it might be fun to have a break, but if no one really needs one, let us continue for another 20 minutes or so, and then we will continue the story in the second part of this in a fortnight's time. Okay, so the journey with carriage in this kind of weather takes a while. You're going slightly faster than a brisk walk, but you are not walking, so you're not using any of your own energies. It is cold, but the carriage obtained by Mary is certainly sufficient to keep the worst of the elements out. You're all totally well equipped for this as well. So the journey takes 10 mile, maybe an hour or so, and you kind of leave the bright lights of New Fair behind, entering the rural grassland cultivations. Not so much now, it is winter time. The tolled land, till you begin to arrive close to your destination. The road's very quiet, no carriages. I mean, it's the eve of one of the biggest celebrations of the year. Everybody now should be home, singing carols, bright lights on, eating snacks and drinking hot chocolate. The four of you think upon that as you are riding into the darkness towards this manse.
I will have instructed my passengers on how to behave. I will give 2 knocks on the roof of the carriage, and then it's a 3 count, and then the left front wheel will come off. The horses will start whinnying very loudly because of me. But all you need to do is start screaming and thinking that the world is going to collapse on top of you, but nothing bad will happen. The carriage is so big and there's just 3 people inside, it won't overbalance. But I need you to scream as if you do, because that will make it all like real.
Yeah, well, it's surprising, as you say, that it should just all work that way. But as we know, sometimes things do not fully go to plan. You get closer as you begin to pull up this manse. You can see the estate, black wrought iron fence around it, some well kept landscaped gardens, a water feature, and then the manse itself. Even to one side there is an old churchyard. This is most definitely your destination. It is perhaps a mile out from the village itself, so you're not overly expecting any passers by or anything else. Any interruptions to this, you make your signal. Now, I'm very interested to know what kind of role you want to make for this.
Because it has to do with moving, in the sense it's about controlling a span of horses in a carriage.
Yeah.
I was hoping you would allow me to use move.
Move is interesting. Run, dodge, or navigate. Absolutely, navigate is kind of a thing. This is nerve, and it's going to take a lot of nerve to pull this off. I'm more than happy for you to use move for this role. It is also something that you maybe have done before. Does anybody want to assist with your screams? Has anybody got any nerve to offer?
I will add 2 dice of my own.
Okay, so you add 2 dice of your own.
I'll add 1 as well.
Oh, right. So you have 1 from Albric and 1 from Eva. So that is very nice. I think that's 6 dice plus well, including a gilded dice. That's 6.
Yeah, I take the 6.
It is perfect. The screams. This is a group action, of course. The wheel coming off, it jerking to one side. Perfect. You have one disabled carriage, although you do know that there's no complications here. It's relatively easy for you to fix this should you need to.
Yeah, basically the axle has a long pin in it to keep the wheel on, and I basically rigged it beforehand with a line going through the roof of the carriage on that side, and then the line, basically a fishing line, so I can pull the pin straight out and when I needed it to do it.
It was perfect. I mean, the 3 of you in the carriage really thought you were going over.
I'm sure that helps make the screams sound convincing.
Absolutely. A magnificent combination, but you now have got a disabled carriage in the middle of, well, not necessarily nowhere, 10 miles away from New Fair, 1 mile away from this small hamlet, outside this Gothic manse. What would you like to do?
Before we got underway, to make sure that Mary heard, and or on the way, I would tell everyone about my encounter with the art dealer, and warn them that this, and warn Synphonie in particular, that this object was probably very, very toxic. And if you have any chance to avoid your gaze, pretend it's a Medusa.
That's helpful to know. Thank you very much. I wonder if the painting that he does possess has an effect of what kind it might induce. We
Well,
learned some interesting things of our own, didn't we, Al?
yes, he seems to be very lascivious, and I wonder whether that might be in part due to, I mean, he may just be that way inclined, but I wonder whether it may also be something to do with the painting. And I think you'd said something about barbecue sauce making people horny. Previously, I don't know if there might be some sort of, whether it's worth watching for possible connections in that vein, I suppose. It
Seems to
yes,
be
I think
any sort of sin is within the remit of the things we've been looking at. But this person in particular, the only exception that I know of for sure is a painting that was in this gallery that was nothing to do with anything lascivious, or at least I dearly hope not.
well,
Yeah, so Eva corrects the information that you had is that this toxin, this poison, it incites the vices, all vices. Eva corrects you in character, so I can confirm that now, whereas obviously Mary has a one-tracked mind.
She's a simple country gal.
Yeah, no.
Also, GM, I would say that prior to us setting out as well, or during the journey, if the carriage was sort of steady enough, I would have taken a few minutes to pull together or quickly concoct a sleep-inducing
Perfect.
vial of stuff, which either I can keep hold of or can be passed to one of my companions as wish.
Absolutely. And gear in here, you don't have to choose before the assignment starts. It does say that you need to spend a few minutes making it up, as long as you've got your sort of mobile chemistry gear.
Yeah, I'd like my ag is very much
Yeah.
one of those ones where stuff folds out and there's all the little shelves and things.
Absolutely no problem, and there's no roll needed for that. That's just one of the things that you do, part of the gear that you have. Okay, so you spread the information around. You have got some rumours, maybe true, maybe not, about what you're about to walk into. It's Christmas Eve, and as I said, normally large tree lit up, bright lights, carols being sung, blazing fires, roast chestnuts. None of the lights are on in this manse. It's pitch black, and you are in the country as well. There are no street lights here. You can just see the foreboding shadow or silhouette, rather, of this Gothic building.
Mary will have gotten down from the driver's seat, one lantern, oil lantern in hand, leads to the horses that are still in front of the carriage in the other. And she will help you down on the side where there's still two wheels on the side of the carriage, and suggest that one of you take the lantern and go to the gate of the house and see if we can use the stables at least in order to get the horses to quiet down, and so I can fix the wheel back on the carriage.
Gone visiting friends, family, perhaps. I know he was something of a black sheep, but it is the season for reconciliations and socialization. Maybe his housekeeper is home.
Well, perhaps I should go and see. Yes. I will take.
And before Albrecht leaves the carriage, I'll just murmur to him, if you feel like passing the draft on to me, I am rather good at slipping and sneaking.
A vial of sleep draft. There we go. Is now in your possession. Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. So with the lantern and the snow now coming down quite heavy, pull your coat. You move to this black iron railings and this large arched gate. The gate's closed, not just closed, but chained closed with a padlock. Your light sort of catches a sign attached quite roughly to the gate. It appears to be the back of maybe a painting or something, and painted on it in oil paints are the following words: keep out, no carol singers, stay away.
Okay. I
What's
want
on the
to
other
look at
side
the
of the
other side.
painting?
I'm just thinking I want to look, but I also don't want to look. Can I glance at the other side of the painting and see if there's anything odd on there, or what sort of a painting is it?
Well, I say from the back you can't tell anything. It's a canvas, but you can turn it around and glance at it. The first thing that you notice when you pick this painting up, a couple of things really, is that the way that the words are written, most definitely written in speed. This wasn't a sign that was written with great care. Secondly, the paint is red, a usual colour perhaps, but well spelt, done by an educated man. You turn the painting itself as well is wet. It has been outside for quite a few days. It's sodden with the snow. You sort of turn it around and it's kind of run a little bit, but the good thing about oils is they don't run so much, and it's quite a well, it would certainly make you blush, as it has a naked woman and man in a very compromising position. The woman kind of made to look like some kind of creature from the Fey lands, maybe some kind of fairy folk, but with temptation in her eyes as she's using everything she has to entice this mortal man.
Does this look to be a well-painted painting? As in, is this one of the ones that Mr. Saxon himself has likely done?
Are you
From
moving across and
Yes.
peering? Well,
Curiosity.
I mean,
As
yeah.
you approach, you see me turn around, then you just hear a "Oh."
You have a degree of knowledge about art. You said your father
Yes,
collects
he
and
has.
stuff. I
He
mean,
has quite a lot.
it's anatomically correct, but beyond that, very poorly painted.
So unlikely to be one of the ones from the artist we were looking at. This is Mr. Saxon's own work.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, as you sort of look at it, look at the poor brushmanship, you do see that it actually is signed L. Saxon.
But he interestingly manages not to blush. Maybe it's just the cold. She's too cold for that kind of.
Maybe already blushing with the chill of the snow.
Yeah. It's kind of a relief, to be honest, from what I've heard of Muscovici's work, to come across this rather explicit but mundane offering is a little relief.
Yes.
This is the kind of thing that would be considered scandalous. It would be considered to be particularly criminal. This kind of design in good society. You are aware, though, there is an entire district given out to, and that seems to be accepted. But this kind of, it's very close to the bone, as it were, and isn't appropriate.
I'm going to address the whole party and say, I'm struggling to remember. Did we get the feeling from Solomon that this individual is someone who would be so callous with his own work? He seemed quite precious.
Solomon didn't know about this guy. We got this assignment from Mr. Zitz.
Oh, Mr. Z. Yes. But he seemed quite precious about how fabulous his work was, and the two of you said that your librarian mentioned how excited he was about his own work. It seems strange that he would just slap something on the back and leave it out in the rain.
It does.
Out of character, from what we've heard.
GM, how far away from the house is the gate?
Not far. You can see this manse towering ahead. Not far at all. It's not like there's a huge gravel drive through grounds. This a manse is traditionally a priest's house. Normally quite extensive, but this isn't a mansion. It's definitely 2-story, most likely with an attic, possibly with a cellar. And you can see to one side there is kind of a small tower turret that goes up to like what would be considered a 3rd floor. It's dark. There are no lights on at all. Perhaps no one is actually at home.
Well, the sign says keep out, and it's been locked. But if he's locked himself in his basement to do painting or something, then I'm wondering if we either try and force the gate or knock and shout and try and gain his attention.
Who of you is perhaps the most focused to notice subtle things?
I'm focused to the point of 2, I would say.
I also have 2 in focus.
Now, to gain some more information, would you like to make a roll about this gate and this situation? You don't have
Yes.
to, because consequences and failures might lead you to injury, but the offer is there.
Yeah, no, I
I
think
think that'd be a good idea.
yeah,
As
I will.
an alternative, to keep the ruse going, which Mary so brilliantly did with the broken wheel, I could always try to sneak over the gate myself and approach the door as the, oh, please help me, I am a woman in 1907.
Yeah, who
Well,
can climb a pointed rope.
With some help.
I'm inclined to have a look, like just from leaning on the gate and looking intently to try and glean as much as possible first, and then potentially then, depending how the roll goes, then investigate further. Might
Okay,
potentially move closer.
I
Is
mean,
my
we could
instinct.
so the
try and get through the gate. We could, I don't know, perhaps I could use my hat pin, or perhaps, Eva, maybe you have some lock picks or something. We could just save the
Well, of
need for
course.
climbing
Well,
over
of course I
anywhere.
have my lockpicks.
Undignified climbing over a wall.
And all sorts of burglary equipment.
So it is up
Now,
to you. What I mean, do you want to have a look first? Is that, or do you want to try and pick this lock?
I'm inclined to
I'll
look, but I will be bow to the group.
I am
And
also inclined to look because I believe that keeping up the ruse at first, should we be caught, is the best way to go forward.
Cool. Okay.
So a focus roll. You can spend drive if you've got it.
I'm gonna spend a drive. Am I gonna spend 2 drive? I might spend 2 drive. I'm gonna spend 2 drive to make a focus roll. So that's gonna be 4 dice, one of which is gilded.
Perfect.
Here we go.
6. Perfect.
6. Lovely.
Very nice. So no consequences. First and foremost, when you first arrived, before you started playing around with the painting, the padlock was twisted, and it twisted facing the house. It perhaps shifted as you were moving it. You're fairly certain with the way the padlock was, it was locked from the inside rather than someone leaving the property and locking the property behind them. Secondly, with the 6, you notice that his carriage is underneath a set of stabling, and there are well, there's a single horse in there rather than a couple of horses. The horses very quiet, very quiet at your arrival, and the carriage and everything else. You might have thought the horse might have sort of whinnied or something. It is, yeah, it's very quiet.
there's something strange going on.
That's
I already know.
unnerving. Don't like it.
Yes. On this note of having a look before we leap into action, as it were, I will pull my fur hood back from my coat. I'm going to slip that little bird skull out of my pocket, and I'm going to extend my senses into the list of things beyond what ordinary eyes can see, and I'm going to make a sense roll to see if I can get any of those tendrils of bleed coming from the house or nearby.
Perfect. Does
Others will
anybody
miss.
want to aid Symphony in this action?
Can't.
Can't.
They're all too mundane, I think.
Yes.
What's
It's intuition, I think.
intuition?
Yeah, it would be intuition.
Go on then. I've got a couple left.
Okay,
Have
Birdie's
one.
up before we get into the true terrifying action.
I mean, I know, but also I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing, both in canon and in the real world.
No, I love it. I love it. I genuinely do.
So, gonna give me a point of
Yeah. So
drive
Yeah.
for that. I shall roll. I shall spend one of my own as well, which I'll knock up if I forget. So I will be rolling 4 dice, one of which is my gilded one.
nice.
So nearly a 6, and it wasn't. We'll go with one of the 4s then.
If you pick the gilded one, you get one of your
Yeah.
drive back.
Okay, a 4.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Interesting. Very interesting. So a success, but with a complication. You reach out, most definitely bleed, a lot of bleed. There is bad things in this house, very bad things. Determined what, you begin to focus, sending your mind beyond. Then you touch it, something foreign, something from beyond, and it is truly terrifying, whatever is in there. Before you have chance, though, rather it has chance to do something to you. You hear a voice, a soft, sweet voice. Help me and I'll help you. Please, it's dark. It's dark. Please help me. I can help you. You sense that interruption, that voice caused the thing that was reaching out to draw you in to recoil somewhat, and then it is broken. So it's up to you how to describe that to your...
Did everybody else hear the voice, or was that just me?
No, just you. It was female, youngish.
Synphonie sort of, her eyes had been as white as the snow around her, which especially for Albrecht would be very sort of unnerving, perhaps, as her eyes sort of just rolled back in her head, so just the whites were showing. After for Synphonie, what felt like a long time, though for everybody else it's probably only been like a minute or two, potentially, she blinks. She comes back to normal and she sort of reaches out to the nearest one of the party for like some support. Did you hear it? Did you hear the voice?
I go rushing over.
There's... where to begin? There's so much corruption, so much bleed here. There's somebody trapped inside the building, a woman, a young woman. She needs our help. She said she could help if I helped her, but there's something else in there too. It wanted to reach out for me. Oh, I need to go in, but I don't want to go in there. We need to be so careful.
I put my arm around her. I say, that was really, really good of you, and that's incredibly helpful. Although I don't quite know how to deal with it.
Mary grabs the wheel from where it lies on the road, puts her shoulder underneath the front part of the carriage on the side where it fell off, straightens, lifting up the carriage, puts the wheel back on, knocks the pin back in, and says, "Okay, if we need a getaway, it's ready."
So as you start to do that, Albrecht rushes over and just sort of stands behind you, basically kind of, and just watches, not knowing how to help as you do it without any, and then just like, excellent. Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
she will lead the team in the carriage in such a way that it will be facing back towards the city before we
Okay.
go into the building. Just ties
Okay.
up the horses. She will not get the horses inside the gate when she hears about the bleed being inside the mansion.
The
Reaching
snow
out
is.
the
Sorry.
building. Was there any sense of where particularly the bleed was concentrated, or was it just a generalized sort of the house?
It's across the house.
Right.
Yes.
It wasn't like at one end, or okay. Yeah, I'll relay
Unfortunately
this
not.
information as well. You know.
Was it also at the stabling structure?
No, it wasn't. It was
Uh,
focused
if
upon the manse itself.
Yeah, if Miss W tells me that, then one of the first things when we go in, Mary will run across to where the horse is stabled
You need
and
to
lead the horse
you
out.
need to unchain the gate first.
Yeah, but just as a plan, she will let the others know that
Perfect.
she will tie it to the back of the carriage.
I mean, there's a number of ways through this gate. You can try and force it. You can try and bend the bars. You can try and clamber over the fence, or you can try and pick the lock. You have a whole host of different sort of options.
Or if we don't mind, if you don't mind waiting a few minutes, acid's easy enough to make. Hey, that's another option.
That's an interesting one. I can always try picking it first.
Happy to be a backup.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
And did we get a sense of the age of the housekeeper, Virginia McFadden?
It was early 20s, I believe we
Yeah.
were told.
Early 20s,
Okay.
yeah. Which Synphonie is worrying and might probably, when she's had a moment, though she looks like she might throw up, when she sort of tries to get her composure back, she I wonder if it's his housekeeper. There was a young voice. Was the lady in the paintings also a young woman?
Yes.
The one that we just seen.
Absolutely, and the voice wasn't childish. It was a young woman, so
Yeah.
quite possibly. But it was in your head, so she must be some kind of psychic of sorts, or maybe your psychic picked up on her thoughts.
Distress, yeah.
So Eva, are you going to try and do this? One
Yes.
assumes you're going to choose burglary equipment from your gear.
Yep.
Okay.
And sleight of hand, hide.
Sounds very good. What are we doing about drives here? This is cunning. If anybody wants to donate, if you've got any left.
Yeah, I can donate one.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then, well, if you're going to donate, then I should as well.
Okay, so I believe that is 4 dice, including a gilded dice.
Yes.
Okay, a success, but with complications.
And I get to get a drive back, yeah?
Yes, if you, I mean, you choose that 4 with the beautiful rainbow on. Absolutely. So you pick the lock. The chain sort of rattles and sort of complication. I don't want to penalise you particularly with losing your equipment. I think that's a little too harsh. So for now, I will bear this in mind, as there are many other things going on. It is a complication that you are currently unaware of. But let us say you did not do this particularly quietly. The gates are now open. Mary.
Do we want to stop here or?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is quite a good. You've got the gates open. You can get ready to enter the grounds. I think it is a perfect ending point to tonight's session. As always, I often mistime one shots. Seems it's going to be a one shot in 2 parts, and this is where things start getting interesting, as you have realised not all is what it seems with this house that you are about to investigate. We will come back to it in 2 weeks' time, and I can hardly wait. But before we go, it'll be quite nice for our cast to say goodbye and to reflect upon the session. Any great moments, favourite moments, anything like that. We'll go in reverse. So, Natascha.
I got to do one of my favorite type of roles in role-playing games, which is the getaway driver.
Perfect. I'm very much looking
Yeah.
forward to you leaping on this wagon and driving off back to the city.
And I got to describe this old carriage from a museum that I found on Google as the others were researching the college. I researched carriages.
It was a beautiful description. The way that you described it, I could just see it in my head, and the way that you visualize the disabling of it, and then you managed to get the role as well, the 6. So it is that that synergy, if synergy is the right word, synchronicity is perhaps the word I'm looking for, of great description and the dice helping you tell that tale as well. Very nice. Matt, once again I apologize, but it was fun. You are the new guy on the block.
Very much the new guy, feeling very much like the new guy, but in a really nice way. No, great, nice to. We're an interesting group of characters, and nice to sort of throw my bumbling, awkward version of myself into the mix. That's fun. Regretting burning quite so many drive points, but never mind, it'll be fine, I'm sure. No, but great, thank you very much. Intrigued to see what happens next.
Perfect. Jocelyn.
I was really excited not to be the person going to the library. I always play characters who go to libraries, either that or barbarians. And in the nicest possible way, to the lovely ladies that I played with last time, Matt, I just thought that the dynamic shifted ever so slightly. And I really like the place where it put me, sort of reaching out to everybody a little bit, and kind of having that middle maker role.
Yeah.
And I could have been really horrible to you, or I could have been nice to you, and it was that's a sort of place that I'm really enjoying playing in right now.
It was really nice to come in as the stranger and then see what happened and what that did to everybody else as well. So
yeah.
Perfect. And then, obviously, last but not least, Liz.
I think my favourite thing about this evening's session was the sort of building sense of that thing that's not quite right. It was, an artist. Okay, then we hear about the kind of paintings he does. And all right, that was one thing. And then this collector on his own particular character twists, flaws, kinks, and everything. And then just how it's building up. And looking forward to next time we play, jumping right in there at that sort of there's something really bad here. I don't want to go in there, but I really do want to go in there now. Yeah, bring it on. Let's see what we go up to next time.
I do like my slow builds, but I think the payoff in the end is always the best. As I say, it is building that tension, that information builder for this sounds easy enough. Oh, well, yeah, that. Oh, oh. No, I don't like this now. That feeling of uncomfortableness, which is not a word, but I've just invented it. I really like. But next session, we're going to see perhaps some horror. No, we definitely will do, unless you all get on the carriage and just drive back. But then, this is the beauty of the ABC. Failure is not an option. It is much better to go into the horrible house of whatever than to fail ABC.
Yes, I'm quite attached to my kneecaps. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So stuck between a rock and a hard place at the moment. Thank you very much
Yes.
if you have stayed with us for the entirety of the session. I hope you too liked the characters developing, the build, and everything else. And next session, we go into the manse and discover what horrors lurk there. In the meantime, have a great couple of weeks, and we will catch you all very, very soon. Bye for now.
Bye bye.